To the Kent City Council meeting of March the 2nd. We're going to start off with a presentation here. So if I could have Mr. Boykin up here. Maybe you ought to stay and let your wife come up.
Stan's great.
I'm going to have to, but thank you, sir. Got to tell you a story. This gentleman, 70 what? 72. Went around the city manager's neighborhood because he wouldn't get out and shovel the snow away from the fire hydrant. So how many did you do?
Yeah, 9.
All right. So, you know, we don't, I know people do this kind of stuff, but we really don't care about it. And if we do, I want to know so we can show some kind of appreciation for that. So we do have a little certificate for you.
Okay, sir.
So
You didn't have to, but
I know I didn't have to, but I wanted to. It reads a certificate of appreciation. This certificate is presented to Mr. Stanley Boykin in appreciation for your dedicated service, clearing the snows from the fire hydrants in your neighborhood during the winter of 2022. Thank you for being a caring citizen of the city of Kent.
There you go.
You might see Stan up on Woodard Hill, and he is also a crossing guard from the city of Kent, Woodard and Fairchild intersection. Am I right?
I enjoy it too. Good kid.
Thank you. You're a good guy.
Thank you, neighbor.
You bet.
That's a bad design.
All right. We're further under committee of the whole. We're going to review once again our city flag that we're trying to establish in the Kent. A little background. I guess I got to go back through this, but this has been a 4-year process so far. Guidelines for the city flag are outlined in Resolution 1975-155, passed on October 15th, 1975. The city flag are to be a simple message to be understood, not to be confused by your eyes. They should have city-funded founding dates as well as some kind of characteristic of the time. The original flag was designed by a 9-year-old student at Holden School by the name of Keith Bauer. I tried to follow up the same concept that they did when they picked Keith Bauer to do the flag. He was a 6th grader at Holden School. For some reason, we just couldn't get it together in the school system to get them interested to work on it. In July of 2021, a small committee was formed to review and study all the guidelines and review the original resolution intent and design a flag for the city. Once again, I want to thank the committee for taking the time to do this for their responsibility. At July 21st, 2021, the motion was to pass the idea of the flag as presented. Later date, it was suggested that we still needed to have more input. So here we are. Where are we? Anyone want to talk to it?
I have a question.
That's why we're here.
Who's on the committee? Were there other options, or how was there?
There
can
was
you give us a little bit like
there was probably
background?
a dozen options that were concepts that were presented in the committee, and we finally nailed it down to one. That's the one that was presented to you. Mike, do you have something?
Yeah, this was it on the charter? This is what the flag should be, or was it a resolution?
It's a resolution.
Could we change that resolution?
I guess we could do anything we want to do.
Well, I was gonna
It's
say,
a resolution, it's not an ordinance. An ordinance would have to go to the voters.
'cause I don't think there's enough color in it, myself. Because I know the bridge isn't green. If that's supposed to be the bridge isn't green.
Don't,
You know what I mean? I'm not gonna get picky.
no, no,
with it.
no, 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 wait,
No.
wait, it's a copier thing.
Yeah.
Especially that one's bad. It's basically the ink in the copier. Yeah, this isn't much better, but I know it's more vivid than this.
I'm gonna say, I think there's some things missing, though, you know? at the
What
bri-
is missing, Mike?
Well, what's in front, what's in front of the bridge?
What's in front of the bridge?
Yeah, downtown. Isn't there a beautiful waterfall that we paid a lot of money to redo? I think that's part of the city of Kent, just as much as that bridge is. And the railroad tracks with the trains coming through, that's part of Kent's history.
So you're
You know,
talking
I
about reincarnating our city pin?
Well, I was gonna say, I wish I could've found my pin, because I was gonna bring, the city pin, why reinvent the wheel when we have that pin, which is beautiful? I mean, that's a nice looking pin.
It's more or less, again, I'll go back to, it's more or less a simplicity thing of what you view when you see that flag, of a person walking past it. I brought this up at our mayor's meeting, and they said to make it as simple as you can. If you go to Stowe or Talmadge, to say two of them, all they have, the Talmadge has a T on their flag and Stowe has an S on theirs. I suppose we could make it just a K.
They don't have as nice a downtown as we do, though.
Pardon?
Neither has as nice of a downtown as Kent has, so
Well-
they're kind of stuck with a T and an S.
You know, like I said, 4 years
Yeah.
asking you people for input, and it's been no.
I didn't know that.
Robin?
Yeah, I kind of go along with Mike's saying. The aspect of the additional pieces, like the waterfalls, like, you know, those are things that you want to capture, and you can do that. I mean, yeah, you want to be as direct and obvious as you can be, but those are aspects, I think, that you can put in there, and it's captured. Most people will understand that. You've got the railroad tracks, you've got the sustainability portion in what we did with the waterfall. There are other aspects of the community that you capture. So you're capturing a lot of different and really salient points of what the community is. And I kind of like where Mike's going with that. I think it's probably pretty relevant and relevant to a lot of people who live in the city as well. And those who don't, you know, they will maybe see those, and it will pique their interest about what the meaning is. There's a meaning aspect to it, yeah.
Sherry, like I said, I'm not saying this is a bad design.
Right.
I just think it needs to be more detailed. You know what I mean? With the, maybe a few things added to it. And you don't need Kent, Ohio on there.
Don't need what?
Kent, Ohio. Is that
Well,
in there?
people say it should be recognized Kent with the established date of it.
Do they have that on the Ohio flag?
No.
They don't have that on any flag, right? I mean,
Well-
like country flags or state flags or...
We're talking, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Incidentally, it was our birthday yesterday, I think it was, the state of Ohio. I don't know, if you guys want to take the concept, go with it, let me know, sketch it out.
So I know you want this finalized. And,
What?
right, so...
4 years
so,
isn't much
yeah,
to work with this.
I know, but maybe there's the sense that here's this flag that's been on the agenda for 4 years that maybe hasn't had enough input, maybe. That's what that's what it sounds like people are saying. So what's the fastest way to get it done? to make everybody happy that we have a flag and something everyone will be proud of. Do you have a suggestion in terms of, short of just saying we're going to accept this, or, and not turn it into a 2-year process or another 4-year process?
You know, after 4 years, I'm asking you guys for your input. You do what you want to do.
Jerry, who designed
you.
this? Was there a graphic designer designed this? or-
Yes, it was a graphic designer. And Robin, if you want to take this and go with, believe me,
I'll work with you.
take it.
Do we?
You know, you talk about the city thing, Mike. I don't see too many around this table,
What's that?
the city pins.
It's
I
on
don't
my
see too
street.
many flags either.
Well, that's true. They're out on the flagpole. There's one there, one there.
Mr. Mayor.
Roger.
Well, you know, taking it and running with it is one thing, but I think my personal feeling is that as a high school principal, I can remember some things that we did that if we did them arbitrarily, or appeared to be arbitrary, no one bought into it. But when people had ownership of it, they rallied around it. I think about like a term, the Roosevelt Way in Kent. That's the kids came up with that. That wasn't you know, and they had ownership, and it was really cool. And then you see like a pride sign there where we had different things that, you know, they designed it and they took ownership of it. My greatest fear is this: we have such a great council, but if we don't have everyone on council has a buy-in that this flag is important, then I say let's not have a flag. Because our community, we want them to buy into this too, also have ownership of this. I think that's, you know, a lot of people, a flag is meaningless, and then there are a lot of people, they go to their death over a flag, and then there's everyone in between. So the question is that how do we get ownership, and how do we get beyond this? And I just don't think we can say just throw it to someone. Maybe, as Garrett said, maybe we need to have a timeline that within 30 days we're going to have a design brought back, or a few designs, and invite the community to come back to the meeting and get some input. And those people who care enough to come back, and because they care about the flag, then we know we have at least a representative sampling, and there might be some ownership with it. Because obviously right now, there are some people on council here who don't have any ownership with it, which is...
There's another aspect. We can just use the old flag. I mean, three of you get together and design this flag. I mean, just have some input into this. Gwen?
So I saw an interesting article out of Kansas of some cities.
I've seen it anyhow.
Well, just for the audience, I just saw an interesting article coming out of Kansas about a flag redesign. And so what that city had done was, I mean, there's a number of different cities that are kind of reevaluating flags. Exactly for your point, is kind of a community building. It's a really feel-good sort of a thing. I think a lot of people would be interested in it. So what they did was that they essentially picked out a few things that were priorities or things that were meaningful, general thematic, right? And then offered an opportunity for designers, artists, designers, residents to submit a flag. And then those were whittled down to the top few and then picked from there. And then the winning or the chosen design, they paid them like, I think $750, I think is what it was in the article, but obviously that could be whatever. Basically purchasing the design from them, and then it was made available to anybody in the community to download or have printed. It became public, you know, belonging to the community. I thought that was an interesting technique. We've got a tremendous number of very talented, we've got professional graphic designers, we've got a lot of talented artistic people. We've got, I mean, our murals are evidence of that. Between Chamber and Main Street, I know, is here too. There's a lot of very talented people. Maybe they would be interested in submitting a design based on some general ideas of what council said we liked or we were interested in, and how that could be symbolized. So that's just a thought.
Mike?
Well, I look at the old flag. I don't know if everybody's ever seen this nice little old city of that was done before the age of computers. Any third grader can get on a computer now and make a design. I'm
First
telling you,
grade.
I was thinking about this today. I went, I could see that wasn't designed on a computer, you know, and they have so many programs on a computer that they can go and pull things, and, you know, they could have 20 designs in an hour. Not me, but a third grader. You know? But that's what I'm saying. It seems, and that's what I said. I'm not putting this design down, Jerry. I just,
Right.
I think it needs more. And I know,
Well,
yeah.
in the process of this, why didn't you come up and say this is what we ought to have? Robin?
Yeah,
I think I did.
to be honest
Never
with
came
you,
to
now
me.
that, oh, I'm sorry. To be honest with you, a more cavalier approach seems to me not to be appropriate for this. A lot of times, this is gonna help define us as a community. And, you know, it's just not a flag, oh, well, you know, let's just get it done type thing. This has meaning. It represents us. And my hope, now that you've brought it up, and you've been one of the major ones pushing this, is that, and I think you feel the same way, this has meaning. And we shouldn't just be cavalier about it. We should actually go through just like the Stars and Stripes have a meaning to them. They help define what this country's about. And this can help define what we're about as a community. And so I think we take a little time to do the right thing that helps define us as a community, because this is going to last a while. It could last 100 years or better. So let's do what's right to come up with the best outcome for us as a community, and have something we feel represents us in a right way.
My guess, the new city hall won't be ready for 2.5 years, so you got another 2.5 years to do this, plus the 4 that we already put in there. So I'm suggesting you guys come together with a committee and take this.
Want to make a motion?
I'll be on the committee. I'm not going to chair the committee.
No,
but I'm going to say I'll.
I mean, carry it on. We had people work on this, little input from you people, even though you were asked.
I don't remember
I don't
being
remember
asked.
being
That's what I'm saying. I
asked.
don't remember being asked, but I knew it was in the process.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't know where it was at. Never got any feedback from. I'd like to see the other 12 designs.
We can do that.
That's what I say. That's a start. You know, and I don't. I said this. This isn't a bad design. It just needs more, I think. That's what I
It's up to you people.
So you're making a motion?
I mean, Mike, you can be the chairman, Robin can be the co-chairman, put it together. I mean,
Okay, whatever. Are you making a motion?
I don't know if I make a motion to chair a committee. Do you want me?
Well, how about forming the committee? I think we need a motion to
I think
form a
I'll
committee.
make a motion to
we'll
form
come
a
to the
committee.
audience when we're trying to figure this out.
Do you want to go to the audience before we
No,
do this?
I mean-
We'll make a motion.
Yeah, you gotta come back to make a motion.
Yeah.
All right, do we have input for it? Come to the microphone, give your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Valerie Landis, 409 West Grand Street. So there's a really famous YouTube TED Talk by Roman Mars talking about flags. And she talks about the key principles of what flags not only mean, just like what Robin was mentioning, but also key elements that it should be so simple that a third grader could draw it. I think we should take those tips, put a committee together, have people from the community come to those meetings, get input from certain things that are important about Kent, and then let's come up with some initial designs, put them out to the city, whether it be through Main Street Kent or whatever, and get the input from the community. Because as Robin said, this is a very important decision, and it does define the city. And if you look at, I came from Chicago, so I'm only using it as a prime example, but it's one of the top 10 flags in all flag history. The key element of the Chicago flag, the 4 stars, the way the blue stripes with the white stripes, it all has a purpose of meaning and an example for why it's designed the way it's designed. And it's simple, it's clean, and Chicago runs around the city with it tattooed on their bodies, to stamps on their clothes, to bikes, bags. It is the pride of the city. Now, Chicago's had some problems recently, but I'm sure in the city of Chicago, they're still running around without flags. So I would love to be a part of a committee or group if somebody from city council wants to create a time and a place for people to meet. I will get people there. We will have input, and we'll have a flag that actually means something to all the citizens of Kent.
Thank you. Further?
Hey, thanks. Would you say name and address?
Name and address, please.
Kenny Crookston.
Oh, we've
631
talked. We talked.
631 Vine Street, right over there.
Yeah.
So, I sent an email kind of detailing what I thought. I don't know if it's worth reading it again.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I'll read it again. I'm going to edit some of it because of this. But I said, while I'm not an expert in any way, I am an avid fan of vexillology and design, and have been vocal about the desire for a flag for the city of Kent for quite some time. Flags can be an exciting opportunity for a community and a chance for unparalleled positive branding for the city. There are excellent examples of cities and towns that have developed fantastic branding and identification for the use of flag imagery. It's not uncommon to see individuals from Chicago or Washington, D.C. with flag stickers on their cars, patches on their backpacks, T-shirts brandishing city pride. While Kent may not be the same size as these cities, the sense of community pride is unarguably similar. Kent, Ohio has an incredible sense of community, from those who have come here from university or local businesses, to those who have stayed after college. People who have moved here because they wanted to be a part of our local community, or people who have lived here their entire lives. You can see the pride when you drive around and see that familiar Kent sticker with a little black squirrel, like all over the state on the backs of cars. People love this city. They're proud to be here, they're proud to spend time here, they're proud to kayak down the river, stop here to get a beer, hang out, whatever. And, you know, you see that not only in Northeast Ohio, but you see it across the state. You see that shirt sometimes when you're getting on airplanes going out west.
There.
And I'm saying that, I'm not saying we put a squirrel on the flag. I'm against it, but. It's not very often at this time, this age, where we get the opportunity to start something brand new. We're not really redesigning anything. We're kind of starting fresh. That flag that was from 1975, that's awesome. It's awesome that a school kid did that. That's something that should be like presented for like a month. Hey, this is the flag of the month for this kid design. That's great. But that's not the city flag. And some of the stuff that's in the 1975 resolution, that flag doesn't even actually follow the stuff that's on the resolution. So this is our chance to develop a new image that can be used to identify ourselves as a community. Flag design is a 4- or 5-dimensional process. We have tremendous past, present, and future to draw from, as well as geographical and social strength that the people in this community can identify with. It'd be incredible to drive through downtown with the storefront businesses and buildings joined together using a flag that represents the city as a whole. Something that says active, fun, healthy, educated, welcoming, proud. A flag with colors that represent the community and or our surroundings. With all the work that's been done downtown over the past several years to beautify this town, this is an opportunity to connect businesses, neighborhoods, schools, students, everyone. So I know there's been some information or some discussion about making another sort of committee or something. I would be happy, excited to join something like that, participate in that part of it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your email.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Mr. Ferrara?
So, just further comments. What if we, what if we task, instead of having a committee, what if we come up with several concepts that we'd want to see on the flag that represent Kent? And so the bridge, the dam, railroad, the silk mill, puffer belly, the grain mill, something like that, and say these are items that we'd like to see incorporated to represent the city of Kent in a flag, and put it out for a contest for people to submit their own design for the flag, and then it can come back to council and we can decide on it from there, or we could put it out to the general population via social media to vote on it, right? So maybe council or the committee can narrow down the choices to a few, but I think the important thing would be is maybe we establish some type of guidelines of what we want, something that's some symbols of the representative of Kent, and then to go from there, and we don't get bogged down in a committee about it. But I think you made a great point. It could be fun, it could be representative. I like this design, to be quite honest, but in terms of the support that it can, and the enthusiasm that it can provide the city of Canada, it'd be kind of cool. So, and I hate the process, but it could work.
Roger?
Well, Garrett, I think it's a wonderful process. It'll be basically our community coming together and bringing it back to us and bringing us some ideas. But I will say this, I don't think it's worth doing if we don't say, you have 3 months, or you have 90 days, or if you, I mean, we have to, and let them run with it then. Why not trust the community to run with it, trust people to run with the idea, we guide it, that we, because that's part of our role, but I think we let them run with it and bring it back to us and bring us some, present to us and say, you have until July 1st or June 1st or something like that, and that way we know that it's a worthwhile project, because I think if you just put a project out there and you just let it without a timeline, that it just will stall out, it won't get done. So let's make I think if we're going to do anything, I think we have to put those type of things in place.
Robin, you still got your hand up?
Well, yeah,
Well,
I
what?
did, but I'll go on. I know we're kind of committed out, but I think it's important. I think this is a chance to bring people together. I mean, you could see the enthusiasm where people jumped up and said, I'd like to participate. Them coming together and all those different mindsets sitting down will bring us a better outcome and better project, actually. I think a better result at the end of the day, because you have people brainstorming. I think it's a good thing, the committee, on occasion when you can bring together a lot of different minds and enthusiasm from the community. And as Roger said, I think trusting it in the hands of the community is the best way to go as well. That allowing them to participate and bring back something that then we as a council have an opportunity to review and then make our decision about is a positive thing. But I'm really pleased to see the enthusiasm that a lot of our residents have about this, and I think it's going to be an excellent outcome for us as a community in pooling that and working with it. Hopefully we'll be able to go from there.
Eddie?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about how exciting it would be to have some kind of a selection process that people could get involved in, when it's like narrowed down to 3, or some way that flag designs could be schlepped around to different groups, and there could be a vote, a kind of a process defined by the group of people that are developing the flag, not just a product, but a process. And perhaps they could say, let's bring in a contest, or let's work with a few designers that we know. But the question I have is that, would it be helpful to have the group come back to us and say what it is they need from us? Like perhaps they might need a budget of some kind, because to do something in a professional way, they might need to have. Not really.
No.
Yeah, we just want to form a group, and we'll get all the
Yeah.
elements that a group that,
Mhm.
I don't think it should be left to just like anyone throw in a designer commission.
Well, the idea is that, something for the public to comment on, and not just one, maybe more than one, but that the process has to be clear as well as, the product. So another group of people getting together and designing a flag and then saying, here it is, may not be what we're looking for here, because we've already had that. And we have I think it turned out to be pretty good, but we say, there's something lacking. Well, maybe that can be developed by a conversation, like we said. by the public in some way. I don't want to define every last piece of it, but the group of people that would be charged with developing a flag would also be charged with developing a process to ultimately select it.
Jeff?
Yeah, you know, maybe we could use the Heritage Fest, you know, where we display the top
Nice.
flags and let the people of the community vote for it.
That could be cool.
There's only a problem.
While we were sitting here, one of the Heart and Soul members must be watching us, and they texted me and said, that sounds like a great thing that Heart and Soul group, the volunteers that have been doing that, because a big part of what they're doing is collecting stories of what it is people love about Kent. And I would think that what you love about Kent is getting to the issues of the, what are the elements, you know, Garrett wrote down his. So I throw that out there. I mean, I can't speak for the Heart and Soul. That's a grassroots volunteer group. But if you want to ask them if they want to lead that, I know they have marketing people. I know they've got a wide range of community members. And, you know, they are trying to reboot post-COVID. And so maybe this is a way to help get their name out there again. So just, I throw that out there for you to consider.
I love it.
I like
Okay.
that. I
like
think
it.
they've got.
Roger had his hand up.
There.
It's all right.
No, you're fine.
I interrupt anyway. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, but I think it should be, again, we have to be very cautious because I really think it should be a subcommittee of the Heart and Soul. I don't want to take ownership away from people who really want to engage in this. And the last thing I'll say about the whole thing is this flag by this third grader, I really think when we unveiled the new flag, what was it, third grade?
It was fifth grader.
Fifth grader? Yeah.
Sixth grader Holden.
I think what we ought to do, because I think this is critical to the history of Kent, I think this thing should be framed in glass, and it should be in our new city hall somewhere, with a plaque underneath it, you know, saying this was designed by a young person in the city of Kent. We have a new one that the community has rallied around, and that this was, I think, real important to do. I think it's a nice transition, and I think I would include it in our new city hall on the wall.
Did Stan do that flag when he was?
Wait a minute, I think there's an initial in the corner.
Gwen, you had your hand up?
Oh, I was just going to say that I like Dave's suggestion, a subcommittee or assistance from Heart and Soul. Perhaps we could reach out to Heart and Soul and see if they would be interested in helping. They already have a lot of contact with residents. I think that might be a good way for kind of including a lot of opinions from people that are civically engaged and love the city already. That sounds like a great place to start, certainly, rather than, you know, we don't want it like a Bodie McBoatface situation, you know, where you guys familiar with that? No? Okay. Well, it was left up to vote, public vote. They were going to name a boat, so they let the public vote. So everybody voted to name the boat Bodie McBoatface, which was unfortunate because that's not, you know, people thought it was a serious boat. But the point is, Heart and Soul would be great at helping to coordinate the people that already love this city and get us something that's very serious and meaningful to the people that live there.
Heidi?
I just want to add to that the people that are here in this room that express interest in being, you could definitely work with Heart and Soul. That's what they're all about, is bringing more people in, you know, people that are interested in different aspects of what they do, and that could definitely be one of their main things, you know, to get restarted and get enthusiasm going in the community. So I think it's a brilliant idea. So does somebody want to make a motion to that effect, or is that like something we should ask them and see what they say?
You know, should I text them back and say, be careful what you ask for?
Yeah.
Garrett has the floor.
I would make a motion that we set up committee time in April, committee of the whole, to discuss guidelines that we want to establish for a city-involved or a citizen-involved contest to design a flag.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think if we set up some parameters of what council can decide what's important, and to give some people some guidelines of what potential things we'd like to see on the flag, make it a contest that has community involvement and all these other things, like it kind of fits the bill, but let's set some parameters and fast track it to make it happen, so Jerry doesn't get aneurysm over this.
Heidi?
Yeah, I seconded it because, the involvement of Heart and Soul, I would really like them to come and say to us that this is something they would like to take on rather than us assigning it to them, even if they did text our city manager. And that way, too, we could have a further conversation about what, what makeup and what the structure should be and how much time they might need.
Roger, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's that connection made. And I don't want to put it on Dave's shoulders, but maybe you can assign it to someone that, the people need to know who they can contact and those type of things. As long as that happens between now and April, because they can get together between now and April. So as long as that's included, I'm good with it.
I would say, Roger, certainly anybody that's interested can reach out to either Amy or my office, Patty in my office.
That's my
Or
point.
any one of us, for that
Yeah,
matter.
really, any one of us.
Yes.
No one's leaving here till they give us your name.
I have something I need to tell Amy. I
Is it
hear
on
that
is it on the motion?
no, but the public mic is not on.
I
is
know.
what
Thank
okay.
you.
Sure.
All right, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, next on the agenda is, presentation, over racism request from the NAACP. I got something I want to read first. Welcome, everybody, tonight to this part of the meeting. I've asked the city manager help to give us a refresher as council considers the NAACP request for a new commission on racism and diversity in the city of Kent. As the chairman of the committee of the whole, I thought it would be helpful to have a better understanding of the efforts that are already underway so that we can make the most informed decision possible about how a new commission can best fit the efforts. I'm asking that tonight's meeting not be a general debate on racism. Council has already had many meetings where council members, staff, and the public discuss the challenges of racism as a nation and to lead council to publicly state their opinions to racism. I suggest that tonight we keep it focused on what we are doing so that we can be thoughtful about how the new committee can fit in with the efforts. After many hours of general discussion, we previously agreed that as a distressed and disheartening as the nation on racism has been, as Kent City Council, our efforts need to stay focused on the action we can do locally that represents the specific needs of our hometown rather than trying to solve incidents in our cities otherwise. We all want the best for our community, so let's keep it focused where the matter most and where we can have the most input here in Kent. We all care deeply about this issue, and we want to fix it. But please remember, cities, legislations, and regulations, but they aren't equipped to drive culture changes. We're proud to do what we can our part of having the city mandate dignity and respect without changing hearts to this issue, eliminating with each one of us looking at others in relationships with one another that goes far beyond the reach of City Hall. Thank you. At this time, I would ask Dave Brewer, who has planned to give an overview of what we have done in the past and what we're going to go direction in the future.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've got them up on both screens now, although I don't know what's going on there at the bottom. Amy, oh, okay. So I appreciate that. It just there's a lot of people, and it's easier to see. It's remember, this is not a city hall room. This is a fire training room, so it's not really designed for easy presentation of stuff like this. But we'll do our best. And the good news is, when COVID came along, we were able to buy bigger TVs. So these TVs are definitely bigger. And Council, you have the handouts, and please use the one that's most that was left at your table with a staple in it because it is the most current. As Patty in my office said, I'm not letting you change another thing, because I kept changing things. So that's my nature. I'm never happy with the product, but this is pretty good, I hope. You know, I guess when you've been in a community for 16 going on 17 years, a lot has happened in the course of that time, and actually many of you hired me, so I mean, you've been around too. This really felt like a good time to reflect back, take a minute. We have a sincere request from the NAACP. We want to give them a sincere answer. And part of doing that is understanding what's going on, how it fits. I mean, to me, that was the fundamental question is, does it fit with what council's got going on? Does it amplify it? Does it help it? Or does it distract? Or does it detract? I mean, those are what council will ultimately have to come to grips with, right? So this is my effort to give that kind of maybe 5,000 foot, not 10,000 foot, but 5,000 foot overview of what's been going on. And because council has been very committed to, I use the phrase up here, multicultural. So I know that's a bigger topic area than what was just presented by the NAACP, their request for a commission on racism and hatred. But we've actually broadened that to include seniors, to include the disabled community, to include LGBTQ community. Council has really, well, I hope by the time you're done here, you'll see you have a body of work behind you in this last 5 to 10, 15 years that actually demonstrates quite a bit of both thought and actions. So so Amy, as far as the clicker goes, this side? So if I want to advance it, I just hit that. So
The left side. I can do it.
there it is. So I just kind of want to, when I first got here, the first thing I did was to take a look at literally a stack of plans this community has done. This community is not, will ever be accused of not doing enough planning and sort of community building planning efforts. And actually, just a couple quotes. I guess my point of this slide is just to say the commitment to inclusion, diversity runs deep. It runs deep in those plans. And there's a quote from 1993 Kent Vision Plan. And then, of course, our most recent is the 2003 Bicentennial Plan, although 2003 is almost 20 years ago. That's unbelievable. But you'll see it's deeply rooted in sort of the DNA of Kent's foundational principles and what they want to be as a community. So we've carried that tradition on. We have it in our annual goals and objectives. It's in our mission statement. Basically, everywhere we go, we say the greatest asset Kent has is its eclectic mix of people, and we try to reflect that in our programs, our services. I won't get into it. I mean, the whole downtown was designed for people. It was meant to be a mixing bowl. And Jim can talk about that. We literally thought that way, and that's why you see so many areas downtown to sit and hang out and watch and interact with other people, because we felt like that's what separates Kent from other places. So it runs deep. It's still present. The specific, more recently, council had a whole bunch of public meetings just like this. Even just taking a look since 2016 through 2018. Of course, COVID came a little bit after that. But I'll talk about what kind of they were doing during that course. But please know there was a lot of public discussion, much like the flag, I guess, or maybe differently than the flag. We've had a lot of meetings in here. We've had a lot of conversations and dialogue, very specifically, probably most often on various forms of racism. So that's not been a topic council has avoided, and they've wrestled with it. And well, I'll talk about some of the outcomes from that too. Council, I wanted to make sure people understood that council had both been a very vocal advocate for a lot of the multicultural values, and that's why I copied the portion of the letter. Some of you may remember, if you're on council, when there was the shooting in Orlando, you immediately said we need to send a letter, and we did. I have a couple quotes there. Taking a public stand for universal acceptance. We are at our best when we stand together. I think those phrases could apply to any of our community interactions, not just the LGBTQ. Now, specifically on the left-hand column there, I threw out some of the action items that kind of spilled out from that public commitment, and from an active local community members that came to council, stood at that microphone, and had a bunch of ideas that they felt were really important to be done for their particular community. And council did. Within 4 or 5 months, you adopted a whole bunch of new protected class status for LGBTQ, unlawful to discriminate in employment, discriminate in housing, unlawful to discriminate in public accommodations. And Bridget, there's a little asterisk there, because Bridget reminded me, while that was initiated through the efforts of the LGBTQ, that is not exclusive. Those apply to people of any race, color, creed. If you're discriminated, council took actions in July of 2016 to better protect you. And those particular actions, you know, Bridget has that memory. She remembers everything. She said, we were the 19th city in the state of Ohio. We were recognized by the community as being one of the pioneers in adopting that legislation. So it's a point of pride, I think. And so I know the next issue was near and dear to Tracy's heart. It was immigrant support, refugees assistance. We also so we sent a letter, and this was, we were all strangers once, and it's just emphasizing that council's committed to protect and serving all. Personal connections lead strangers to become neighbors, and neighbors into a community. So I think you can pick up on the spirit. One of the things that grew out of that was there is a national, it might even be international, welcoming city designation. We took a lot of research into that. I still love the concept. Like a lot of things, it's not supposed to be a city-led effort. It's supposed to be a local community-led effort. So we took it as far as we could. And then we said, hey, who wants to carry it further and really kind of become a welcome, you know, to hit basically the milestones that are required to be a welcoming city. I think I have, yeah, there's the Welcoming America website, and that's where we kind of did our digging and found out what it takes. And a lot of it is as simple as it sounds. What can you do to make your community more welcoming? We love the idea. We liked it because it was such a hands-on template. It wasn't a philosophical debate. It was like, here's the things that welcoming cities do. So I throw that out there for anybody that's interested. We really like that. Oh, I went too far. Can I go backwards, maybe? Right click? Did it go back? Nope. It didn't. That's okay. The other one was the refugee. You want to try it?
We'll find a third grader.
Sorry. Technical difficulties. There it is. So this actually was a great resource until it wasn't. And what I mean by that is, you may recall when we started looking deeply into refugee resettlement issues, Akron was one of the areas that was receiving a lot of refugees. And so we were like, this is great, they're right there. We talked to them, the organization that is, and they said, well, here's what we need. They need blankets, they need simple household items, they need all these. So we shared those back with council. But I will also tell you about that time, there was a change in sort of the national administration in terms of immigration and letting people in. And I think for a while, the International Institute was almost out of business. So that kind of really put a chill on that. So that's still out there, but there's not necessarily much that we have. Let me click. Then we had senior citizens. I think you probably remember when Melissa Long was on council. She was a vocal advocate for a senior citizens committee. She wanted a group that would represent and advocate on behalf of seniors in our community. She was also very anxious to have a senior center. And remember, we are a community that does not have a senior center, official senior center. And our county is also one that doesn't have the kind of funding that a lot of the other counties use for senior support. And I think that's part of the reason we don't have as much sort of budgetary opportunities. But a motion was made. We had a bunch of speakers come in, and they presented what was being done in their communities with seniors. And I know you all liked a lot of the ideas. We all did. It's a group of our community that is growing, and so we certainly want to be in tune with their needs. And but you did, in consideration of the Senior Citizens Standing Committee, you declined that on your belief that we could do just as much good directly with the seniors. And I remember there were a number of examples of local senior housing units where Bridget ended up providing assistance, even though we didn't really necessarily have an official role. She went ahead and advocated on behalf of some of the concerns of the seniors. So that's what we do. I mean, that was your answer was we don't need a committee, and Bridget basically provided that. I think you probably remember, I still feel guilty about this one, but again, we took this as far as we could go. You passed a resolution to become a compassionate city. I remember the couple was from India, I believe. I think they were retired faculty, terrifically nice people, and they stood at the microphone and said they think it's a great opportunity. So again, some of the language you see there, spirit of unity, embrace and apply compassionate solutions. This is another one that you can only take so far. So there's the organization, and we did our research, and we were doing our charter, but it actually, some of the steps require, well, who's your grassroots, who's in it, who's leading it. It's not a city-led thing. So we kind of banged up against another wall because there wasn't an obvious person that wanted to run with it. So that's still out there, but we haven't been able to kind of resuscitate that. In June 2020, a little more recently, Council passed a resolution affirming that Black Lives Matter. The city is committed to condemning racism and committing to fair and equal treatment for all. I think this is close enough in time that you're all pretty familiar of that conversation that you had in here, and I just wanted to give you a brief update. Nick has done one update with you before. He and his staff have had a number of community dialogues with the KSU, undergraduate student government, bus students. We've had NAACP meetings that they've attended, Ken Interfaith Alliance, and particularly the Collaborative Community Committee. I think I got that name right, the CCC. So there are some good groups out there that the police have continued to have an open dialogue with, and I know he's always open for that, so don't hesitate to take him up on it. Nick, I know one of the conversations that often came up in the context of this was, well, what is the police department training? And I just want to snapshot a couple. There's a lot more than this training, but these are the ones that are certainly most relevant to this issue. They have diversity, inclusion, equity training, they have de-escalation training, and they've had implicit bias training as well. So all the officers have had that. A point that has been asked for some time, and we actually have all the units in place now, and that's the body cameras. So all our officers are equipped now, thanks to Council's commitment to the funding, although Nick was able to get some grant funding as well, so thank you, Nick, for that. And so that camera process is in place, and I know our other Nick, our IT Nick, has been working with Chief Shearer to make sure he's got a dedicated server for that, because as you might imagine, that's an enormous amount of video. So that's in place. Also just wanted to put a plug in there for the Citizens Academy, the Police Citizens Academy. They've been doing it 11 years. They've got about 180 graduates. I see Stan ducked out, but Stan is a graduate. He told me he thoroughly enjoyed it. He really liked it. He'll volunteer. He helps out. So he really developed an affinity from that process. And we certainly urge anybody. I don't know when will your next academy be, guys? Fall. So you have some time to recruit some folks if you want. It really is a great way to get inside and develop relationships with the police. Similarly, first the health department and then council picked up on it too, was health equity. You adopted a resolution recognizing health equity in all policies. I'm trying to read that here, my eyesight, but you remember that conversation. It was September 2020. So I did want to just grab a couple of, so that had to do with like policies and I think trying to get at some of the comments regarding systemic racism. Is it built in your policies without you even knowing it? Is it built into your training? Is it et cetera, et cetera? So I did want to point out that both the police and the fire have used a third-party independent review process to review all our policies and procedures. It's a national company that does it all across the country. They're not cheap. We've spent a total of $84,000 in updating our policies to make sure that they are fair, equitable, that they are in compliance with all best practices, standards, requirements by government, but it's a wide range, and Nick can certainly talk more about that if that's of interest to you, and same with Bill Myers. They're not Nick may be closer to being done in terms of integrating them, because he had an opportunity to dedicate some more staff to that than Chief Myers did, but for the fire department, but those two have been well underway. And there's also, we've had a lot of discussions on this, just like you have talked about in council. You wish you had opportunities to recruit more African American, or any minorities, any people of any color, across the spectrum to be represented on council, or in our committees and our boards. And it's been, you've had the same challenge that we've had in recruitment. A lot of our stuff is civil service, so we don't have a lot of latitude. It is what it is. We follow the civil service rules. But I know we've had a series of sort of internal review meetings to figure out, well, where can we tweak the system to try to broaden that net, to get more folks in. And Nick, again, I think he talked about some of that in his August update to council, but he talked about that. And he did say just recently there were at least 3 candidates that were minority status that he had that had submitted and got into the process. So let's hope that's a trend that will continue, because it's not been a trend. And then the other big item, I know it started under President Barack Obama. He had his 21st Century Policing Initiative, where he outlined the items that police departments should be doing, and that was sort of adopted in the state of Ohio under the auspices of the Ohio Collaborative, and that was a listing of, particularly with an emphasis on social equity, racism, and those sorts of things. And so of those best practices, Nick reports that we have already in place 26 of 28 of the best practices nationally, and those have been in place. One has to do with surveying your residents, and that would have been 27, but it turned out that the professor that was working on that, he had recruited a professor's help who does survey work, and we're not sure what happened, but it sort of stopped. So I guess my point is, just because we hit 26 of 28, he's not done. He wants to get all 28. But I did want to share that because I'm not sure everyone realizes that. That's, again, I think that's a credit to the department. So then council, actually, this I think goes back to Roger, was a multicultural commission. So I kind of go back a little bit in time. This was September 26, and council passed this resolution to look at a multicultural commission. Now, that was a broader umbrella than just what's being proposed by the NAACP, but similar. And as a couple of you may remember in that process, because you created a subcommittee, and it was myself, Robin Turner, Heidi Schaefer, Bish, and Roger. And we had a number of meetings, and we reported back to council. And your recommendations back to council was that I don't think a commission is the way to go right now, but you love the ideas. And these were some of the ideas that popped out of that discussion was, we've got all these multicultural values, and I think this is Heidi's phrase, living our values through community. So that became our branded tagline, I guess you could say. And that became, I guess, the centerpiece of what we tried to do. So we're starting to try to pull all these disparate pieces under the umbrella of multiculturalism. And that led to, well, we got to have a name for this thing. Because we talked about, what do we do with this? How do we recruit people and get people excited and to participate? So we came up with the One Kent initiative. And I did the chicken circuit, all the Rotaries, the Lions clubs. I pitched this and said, again, a small town global village, that might also be Heidi's. Heidi was very much involved in that process. But it's a great way to summarize kind of where Kent is at and where we're trying to live up to, the aspirations that we're trying to live up to. So I did all the round town and said, hey, this is what we're doing. We certainly would love more people's help, because this isn't meant to be a city-led initiative. And here's some more of the kind of, we wrote another letter to Congress. I just thought this was such a great quote, and this was something I used in the One Kent process. Within each child awaits the future of our communities. Please join us in recognizing the enormity of that responsibility and be an agent for change with us, Kent City Council to Congress. So again, it's just reiterating the commitment is real. It's there. And you've been consistent in your statements, so it should be a point of pride. Now, so here we were, all this energy, and we weren't sure how to channel it. And thankfully, we actually sort of stumbled on Heart and Soul, but it's a national organization, it's a national foundation. It's been in use in over 100 communities across the country in 19 states, including Ohio. But they have sort of this proven template. They've tested and retested it in terms of how to do community engagement. Because it's not, as you know, I mean, we know as a council, it's not always easy to get community engagement. I think kind of getting the mayor's earlier comment, he tried to get community engagement on the flag and he wasn't successful. He went to the schools, he tried, but that often it's hard. But Heart and Soul came out with this, and they do training, and they assign coaches and in communities just like ours. And particularly, what I particularly liked about Heart and Soul was it wasn't the Clevelands, the Akrons, the big cities. It tended to be medium to small cities, which is really us, right? I mean, that's more what we are about. So this is just a couple pictures of that from there. I won't click on this, but one of the things that really impressed me of this particular organization, how it builds the next generational community leadership. And this is a great story of a young woman who was a single mom with 5 kids, totally disconnected with her community. She got involved in Heart and Soul, loved it, and ended up running for school board, and now she's a really active member in her community. This is a YouTube link. I won't click on it, though, because I don't want to risk messing up the system here. But if you go to the Heart and Soul website, you can find that. It's one of their videos. So, council, we came back to council and said, we found this thing called Heart and Soul. And you gave us 2 thumbs up and said, okay, make it happen. And so you made a resolution affirming the City of Kent's commitment to participate in the community Heart and Soul. Their tagline, more than anything, is involve everyone, focus on what matters. They're really big. They want to talk. I mean, if they could, they would talk to everybody in the entire community. And when I say they is us. This isn't, they offer coaches through the foundation, but the coaches train the local people to do this, and that's really how the process works. It's local, local, local. So here's a quick summary of the Heart and Soul meetings that have been going on since 2019, 20, and 21. It's been over 700 hours of volunteer time dedicated to this. They've been at the Heritage Fest. They've held functions at, they've had tables, they've had booths, they've done surveys. You'll see a couple other things they've been doing too, but I don't want to dismiss. Sometimes it's easy to overlook them because we don't necessarily parade them around all that well, and then COVID really made anything face-to-face hard, and unfortunately they were at the face-to-face stage, so that was particularly problematic. But they have a Facebook page, the Kent Heart and Soul, and that this is an image, obviously that's their banner. Here are some images of events that they've run, and you see people being interviewed, telling their stories, what it is about Kent that they love, that they admire, that keeps them here. And the Heart and Soul mission and vision. I've had some people say to me, what exactly does Heart and Soul do? But you can see here a lot of the same kind of language that we have heard all along about creating a place of caring, inclusion, and kindness and potential for participation for everyone in the community. Celebrate diversity. I think you should be hearing those same buzzwords that are deeply rooted in all the work we've been engaged in. Okay. So Heart and Soul is not for the faint-hearted. It's a 11-step process that's divided into 4 phases. And the yellow star is where they're at in Kent. They've laid the groundwork, and they had started to do interviews, and you see an example of an interview being done there. Of course, it's during COVID, so they had the mask. But they're collecting stories, and then there's a separate group of volunteers that take those stories and put them in a template that then becomes the data that's analyzed. They distill it into common themes so that they gradually work their way into what are the main themes that we're hearing in Kent. What makes Kent Kent, and what you'll see there, we're in the exploration of your community phase, but then you get into steps 3 and 4 where I think some of the more, this isn't just a warm fuzzy project. There is but they wait for the tough conversations in steps 3 and 4 after the relationships have been established. Because part of the conversation, what do you love about Ken, is X. Well, where are we living up to X? If we're not, we need to talk about it. And that's what this process gets to eventually. It tries to do it, like I said, after a common basis has been established for, you know, what we love about our community. So, starting to come back out from the weeds here, we have tried to sort of use this process. Remember, I had all these disparate pieces, and I tried to, I'd say I, but it's we tried to bundle these underneath this multicultural framework, and I gave you some examples there. I would argue that the foundational values, going all the way back to the first statements, the second slide I showed you, to things that Roger talked about as in the school program. He's big on appreciative inquiry, and that those words mean something, and those were intentional, and those were part of those conversations. So I just want to have those up there quickly to remind you kind of the values of it. I would say that the majority of what we do has been direct communication between council staff and the citizens. So as we start to get into the NAACP request, I would just for context, understand that it's a slightly different tack. Now maybe you're fine with that. I just want to make sure we recognize that it is doing something different with this particular group that we have not chosen to do, and actually you've said no to a couple other groups. I'm not trying to angle you in either direction. I just want to make sure you recognize that, that's all. It relies more on sort of third-party communication with the citizens, and I guess you're relying on folks on the NAACP Commission to interpret what they're hearing. And so I generally like to hear it directly myself, and we're small enough as a community that we tend to be able to do that. How many times are you in here? We have a line of people. LGBTQ was a great example. There was 20 people, and they all took their turn speaking, and you listened. You made motions for us to do some stuff, came back, and you adopted it. So that's not to say this can't work. I do not mean to suggest that. I just want to make sure you understand it's different. That's all. I do want to say this, though. City boards and commissions, when it has a city stamp on it, it has this whole legal responsibility issue, legal authority issue, and legal liability issue. And I hate to complicate matters, but quite candidly, depending on the level of functionality that you assign to a group, it can be anything from statutory, like our planning commission, to advisory, like our sustainability committee. But any and all of those, acting under your direction and your approval, have to be very clear on what the legal responsibility is, what the legal authority is, and the legal liability, because it can come back on the city. And I'll give you an example. Bridget pointed out we used to have a fair housing citizens committee who would make rulings on disputes between landlords and tenants, accusations of discrimination on a landlord. And those landlords would challenge those in court, and the courts were ruling against the city because they said you can't have people that don't have expertise passing regulations like that or making rulings like that. So we were getting this problem with arbitrary and capricious lawsuit issues. So as a result of that, council previous to you eliminated the Fair Housing Committee, and now Bridget still uses a third-party expertise basically out of Akron to handle any of those cases that come up, because that's what they do, that's their wheelhouse. And now those stand up in court. So one example there. The lack of content expertise is always going to be a challenge in a small community too. I mean, we've had, you've certainly been a party to some of the architectural review board disputes that we've had in terms of opinion, interpretation. We even had a lawsuit in the Starbucks situation where the Planning Commission did not follow staff guidance and chose to go their way, and we lost that lawsuit. So you're familiar that the best commissions and committees are the ones that have really well-written, well-designed parameters, or, as Bridget likes to say, guardrails. And she can say that because she has the majority of the commissions she staffs in the council, in the community. So I started to get ahead of myself there. The lessons that we've learned, you need a really clear mission. There can be no questions, so that everybody understands what they're getting into, what they're doing, we don't need to create more disputes from a lack of clarity up front. We still have this challenge of availability of applicants. How many times have we struggled just to get our boards and commissions full? I'm pretty sure we don't have them all full right now. I would say we've had good success with our direct engagement, and you did decline the seniors committee, so it does beg the question, are they going to come back now and ask again? So just keep that in mind, right? When you say yes to one group, what does that do for the others? So, again, a little bit further back, I've tried to demonstrate in the overall here, you've made some very public commitments. You've taken collective actions. You have efforts in motion. So you've got an engaged group of people. It had more momentum before COVID, so we are going to try to hit the reset button and get people re-energized for some of the heart and soul stuff. As I noted in some of the quick snapshots, you have areas of progress. I think overall, as I look at what we've accomplished, there's a body of work there that you can, I think, stand behind or stand in front of, whichever way, and to demonstrate your seriousness of intent on these issues and living up to the promise of being one Kent, right? Look, I put it in there. Community building is never done. We always got room to improve. No questions asked. No one is suggesting that in any way, so please understand that. So the question is, getting back all the way to where I think we started, does a committee fit, where does a committee fit in that puzzle? Is it something that council will think is an important piece, a less important piece, a not important piece? That's up for council to decide. I can tell you that our experiences, committees are best at distilling a lot of competing voices. When you have a lot of noise, they do help to narrow it down. They do help to build consensus. It doesn't come easy, building consensus in a committee. Just like council, it's never easy, but it is something that they sort of can push to happen. Sometimes they're really good at regrouping and refocusing. If individually we're getting off track, I think they're good at vetting ideas. I'm not sure. I still think individuals, by the acting on their own, often generate the best ideas, but sometimes vetting ideas, committees are really good at. But to achieve those things, they need, again, I just want to emphasize, clear mission, goals, and tasks, well-defined expectations, clear ground rules for participation and engagement, deliverables, time frame, guidelines. So since I was on a roll with that stuff, one of you had asked me, if this was a staff initiative, what would you ask of your staff to show you? And I said, all right, well, let me look at that. So this was, if I was going to be asked to answer the question that you're being asked, of the fit of a committee into the overall approach of what you've been doing, I would really need to know more. I feel like there needs to be some clarification, some discussion of the data, the definition, and the experience with this format, with the people involved in that. What other communities have they done this? I mean, you ask this of us for anything we come to you with. You say, well, where else has it been done, and has it worked, and what have been the lessons? So I try to give you a snapshot that if I was going to try to give you an answer, a recommendation, because you often ask me for that, but I don't feel like I know enough right now to be able to give you a recommendation for how it fits. I would want to know these kinds of things. I know in particular, heart and soul, I've been through enough of that training to know data collection, reporting, and assessment is super important, and verification, super important. They talk about do not rely on anecdotal data. And that's why they go literally door to door and talk to people and try to get that direct data. And the people that analyze the data are not the people collecting it, because they don't even want that sort of bias to carry over. They keep the silos there. That's a lesson learned by a national organization that they drilled it in our head when we were doing heart and soul, so I can't let go of it, and that's why I threw it in there. But I don't know, in terms of role of city staff, role of council, role of the public in this process. And again, I think we do generally like to know what some other examples where this group has been used, where this committee concept has been used in Portage County or not, or, and the skill set of the people that will lead it. So, sorry, I'm taking a lot of your time. Yeah, that's it. That's the end of the presentation. I know I covered a lot, but, I feel like we haven't done this in a long time. And you've done a lot, we've done a lot together in these areas, plenty of room for more, but I do think it's kind of helpful at times to take a moment and see how far we've come, and if nothing else, maybe that gets us energized to keep doing more. So I'll stop there. That's all I have.
I just want to say, Dave, thank you for your time putting in this, and thank you for re-educating us again, because with COVID and that, a lot of us forgot where we were and where we're going with this. So I guess we're up to questions just on the presentation. Mr. Ferrer?
That was very good, thank you. You know, in years past, you've been able to quantify the time spent on particular subjects. Did you happen to have an opportunity to say, like, what percentage of or time of staff time has been on matters that you would call similar, this matter, or thus related?
We have, and because, ironically you asked that, because I just pulled that folder out last week and said, man, I'm behind. I haven't done 20 and 20. Since COVID hit, I sort of stopped. I need to catch those up. But a lot of this stuff predates COVID. It was, and you can look in that one slide where you saw the majority of council activity. We categorized as social conversations. So we had economic development was the hot topic in for 2010, 2011. That infrastructure, there was partnership, there was a lot of partnership stuff with Kent State. That morphed into the social aspects of our community. And we always said, hey, bricks and mortar downtown was just the starting point. The goal now is, I think I used the phrase, I can't remember if Dana was a part of it, is the soft tissue. We built the muscle and the bones, but now we got to work on the soft tissue in our community that really connects us. And so, yes, I don't remember the exact percentage, but I can tell you that there was, in those years where you saw a lot of activity, social areas were like #1 in terms of council's time and, you know, in committee.
Thank you.
Further questions of Dave? Go to the audience. Is there any questions on tonight's presentation only to Dave? We'll see none.
Thank you.
We will regroup next month, and as you know, we got a letter on file from the WNHCP, and they made a proposal to us, and I guess that's the next step, unless somebody else has any direction. Seeing none? Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is we got an appointment for Board of Commissioners, Shade Tree Commission. Amy, will you read the names of the people that are here?
We have 2 vacancies on the Shade Tree Commission, and the first applicant is Rebecca Berryhill. If you would come to the microphone.
Rebecca, if you come to the microphone, give your name and address and a little short why you want to be on the Shade Tree Commission.
Sure. Is this on now?
It is on, yes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Berryhill. I live on Needham Avenue, 462 Needham Avenue. I've been a resident of Kent. I started at the university in 1991, so I've been in and a member of the community since then.
Okay. Are there questions from Ms. Schaefer?
Yeah, so could you talk about why this is important to you to volunteer to assist on developing or maintaining the urban forest here?
Sure. I actually, when I came to school at Kent State, I actually got a degree in education. And it's kind of a little bit different what my occupation is or what my career is. I actually manage the grounds department at the university. And I guess I sort of, I learned as I went. I had a student position at the university, and you know, thought it was just going to be a summer job type of thing, and it turned into a full-time position where I could finish my degree with, you know, no debt. Decided to do that. So through that whole process of learning not only how to be an adult, I also got a lot of really good information from my coworkers, from my manager, and it's just been a constant learning process. One of the biggest ticket things that I think I took away from it was my appreciation for what trees do for us and what we can do for them. And I actually just hosted a young tree training seminar at the university, brought in by our former urban forester, the great Alan Seward. But one of the best things that he says is, you know, we have to view trees in our urban forests as almost like pets. And if you let your pet, like you put it in a corner and you just kind of give it the food and the water and you walk away, like it may grow a little bit, but unless you actually nurture it, it takes a while to become like kind of a symbiotic relationship. Like you can have a well-behaved pet that appreciates you, and you can appreciate it, because we're really putting some harsh conditions on these trees or on our pets. So we have to appreciate that and see what they actually really do for us as people and the rest of like our whole culture. So.
When?
So when I take my pet, my dogs, for a walk around the neighborhood, I have favorite trees on my walk that I always like to check on, like you know, maple trees that maybe Davy, you know, Mr. Davy a while back might have planted, or a big ginkgo or something like that. And then I have my least favorites. When you walk around Kent, do you have a favorite pet tree and a least favorite pet tree?
Sure. I would say, like, we have some, I mean, we just have some absolute units of oaks, like, throughout the community, Rockwell, around, like, Rockwell Street, and, like, that central, I guess, south central area. There's some just giants through there. I love the oak down Horning Road, Rhodes Road, Horning Road, right at the edge of our administration services building that is actually the city's, but I claim it whenever I get a chance to. And obviously, like, I hate the pears. Like, I know people, yeah.
Bradford pears.
Oh, yeah. Like, I've learned from the best to, yeah, they're stinky, they break, a lot of bad things going on. But I mean, there's neighborhoods that I just walk into that I just feel, like, you just feel like a draw toward. So some of those. I'd love to see a little bit more diversity, but not like some crazy ornamental things. I want to see some actual shade trees go in the ground, and appropriate trees for the environment in which we're putting them into.
Thanks.
Roger?
First of all, I loved your story.
Oh,
That's great, that journey you took. So would you see your role on the Shade Tree Commission as one of really educating the public?
I think it's, again, a sort of a symbiotic thing. Like, I think I need to be educated in what people view, like what this community is really driving toward. Like, are we looking to increase our canopy cover? Are we looking to you know, highlight certain spots in the city? Like, what is it that finding that common thread that we can all, like, kind of go toward? But I rely on experts in my position, and I would hope that, like, I don't think that I would necessarily be a huge advisor, but, like, I will ferret out information when needed, and rely on the arborists, and rely on folks who have done heavy lifting for their whole careers, like for, you know, some of the structural things. But I definitely have an opinion like everybody else.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? My question is, you live on Needham Avenue?
I do.
If it was the ultimate, how would you redesign your street for trees? With the wires and everything
Yeah,
involved?
like I live on the wired side, so I would actually purchase on the other side of the road. Yeah.
Isn't that called avoidance?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough street. We have some gorgeous trees across the street. But as far as like a redesign, I mean,
That's a dream.
yeah, well, we're gonna get those wires off of here and under there, and also like maybe do something with the water, and you know, yeah. So. Yeah, I definitely underground, and it would have been nice to, like, if we're thinking big, like with the sidewalk project that happened, you know, we could have snuck some a little bit of infrastructure at the same time.
So what kind of trees would you like to see on your street?
Oh, God, do I, like, really? You
You're
guys ready
green.
to start writing? Yeah. I mean, we definitely, we always have to use, like, I feel that oaks are a keystone for not only, like, their longevity, but for all of the animals, like, throughout all of the great insect species. They're crucial. And then supplement that with some natives. Like, we need a diversity of natives. So, like, I want some nisses, I want some hackberries, I want some, like, some things that are going to give us some color and pop and people to notice them, but also, like, they will behave in the manner that we need them to.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Next.
Jason Knowles.
I just got an education.
Jason, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good evening. I'm Jason Knowles. I live at 1293 Gale Drive. I moved to Kent 30 years ago, or to the Kent area, actually. Originally lived in Stowe. Right out of school, I got a job for ACRT, which was just down the road at the convent. So that was the start of my career. I had fully intended on working there, gaining some experience, and moving back to Illinois, where I'm from, and maybe living in Chicagoland to be an urban forester up there. But I got stuck. I stayed here. So I have been in Kent for over 20 years now. I started my career, like I said, at ACRT, went to the Davie Resource Group, and now I work for myself as Knowles Municipal Forestry. I am a consulting urban forester in Northeast Ohio, so I help communities manage trees. I have served on many shade tree commissions, a lot of times as a job. I didn't really feel obligated to jump into my community for some reason, because that's what I did for a living. But it's been 30 years now, and I would really like to be more involved with the community and use what expertise I have to help here.
Mr. Ferrer.
So the desire to get involved is because of a perceived need on your part, or?
Not necessarily. More of a desire just to be more involved. You know, I know more mayors, council people, city managers from other communities in Northeast Ohio than I do in my own community, and that's a shame. I should be more involved here.
Anybody else? Gwen?
So I'll just ask you the same
Yeah.
question, because I love hearing people's favorite trees.
Sure.
So when you're out in Kent, is there a specific tree or a grouping of trees that are your favorite, and one that you just wish you could sneak and, like, you know, eliminate?
That's funny. I get that question a lot, and it's usually, you know, I'm planting a tree in my yard. What's the best tree? I'm constantly asked, you know, what would you plant here? What would you do there? And really, the only way to answer that is with a series of questions to pick the right tree for the right place. I can name any tree, or you can name any tree. I will tell you a reason to plant it and a reason not to plant it.
Do you have a favorite tree in Kent that you know of that you go visit?
I would say my favorite tree is in my yard. I planted a Kentucky coffee tree off the back of my deck. And the reason I have it there is because it grew fairly quickly. It's a large shade tree. It's the last one to put on leaves, so I get to take advantage of the spring sun. So I get more sun on my deck, and it loses its leaves very early, and it's a very sparse tree, so I get more sunshine on my deck in the fall. So it works very well for that location. On the flip side, like I said, there is good and bad. It's fairly messy. It drops seed pods and long sticks, but I have kids to pick those up, so it doesn't bother me. That's right.
That's why
Anybody else? I'm going to ask you the same question. Gale Drive.
Yep.
What's your dream for Gale Drive if you had the ultimate?
I agree with what Becca said. Power lines are always a problem when you're trying to grow wires or grow under the wires. Larger tree lawns would be nice with no power lines, so we could plant big trees. And you know, oaks are always a great choice. There's a lot of Kentucky coffee tree would do well too, because they're good with urban stresses and they grow fairly quickly. To design a street from scratch would be ideal. Because of the limitations that we have, you know, I prefer to plant smaller trees under the power lines, and then across the street, my neighbors can enjoy the larger trees, and I can enjoy the shade on those too. We actually have Norway maples mostly on that street now, and you know, being an urban forester and understanding the need for power lines, you know, my trees V'd out. I happened to catch them when they were out there and let them know who I was, and they took their time with my tree, so that was nice. But you know, from my living room window, it looks like a nice tree because I'm seeing the sides that aren't V'd out. You know, driving down the road, it's not so great. But I always, again, I say that you know, when you say you're an arborist, you're either a butcher or a tree hugger, one of the two. I'm neither. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm a manager. I understand. You know, if I didn't have hot coffee in the morning because my power lines were down, I would be very upset. So I want my tree, but I want the power lines. There's ways to make those work together.
Okay, your maple trees, you tap it for maple syrup?
Can you? You could. I do not, no.
All right.
Norway maples aren't so good with that, and it takes a lot of sap to make a maple syrup. I do have friends.
realize that.
I passed his house today. He's tapping, and he's got his bin out. He's a big stainless steel bin, and he's going to start boiling soon, so I will be stopping by there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clutters up the neighborhood.
That's,
We had a third applicant, Maggie Margulies, but I don't believe she's here. Okay, yeah, she's not coming.
all right. Just to tell you, we will vote in 2 weeks at the, I think it's the 16th meeting to make a decision. And, you know, thank you for applying. You know, all our boards and commissions are very important in different status to all of us, but the Shade Tree is one of them. It's a big one. This is the Tree City. So, thank you. That's it for Committee of the Whole. Community Development, Mr. Kuhar's not here, so Glenn Rosenberg, you have to do it.
Oh, boy.
Here I go. Okay, first up is Bridget, who is going to be talking, please, about the Celebrate Kent Diversity Grants review.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, so through a request of council to look at the Celebrate Kent funding to see if there was a way that we could use the funding to, or shift the focus to support grants that promoted diversity. So we did look at that. I looked at actually examples that were forwarded to me by council as well as others. And one of the keys that it looks like is there actually are 2 ways to support diversity, and we have 2 existing grant programs that can actually support both of those approaches. So if the Celebrate Kent has a $15,000 allocation, we feel that we could do a carve-out that would allow us to support a event that was basically focused on promoting diversity on a much larger scale. So we would have criteria to meet that. You couldn't say, well, we're having this event, we're letting it be open to everyone, so it meets diversity. We would actually carve it out more specifically, and we could fund that at the same level as we do our other events, and still not have to hinder any of the other events that we're supporting through that program. So I think a modification of the Celebrate Kent guidelines and specificity of how we are defining a diversity event would allow us to support a larger community-based one. Then there are smaller diversity grants. So this was more focused on a specific smaller project or initiative. For example, I think one of the examples that resonated with me is one that, for example, educators would use to facilitate an event or a project that would educate or expand on diversity. Those would be smaller grants, $250 to support the project or initiative. We would accept funding for that on a year-round basis, and we could do a small carve-out out of that, out of the Neighborhood Grants Program, because it actually lines up with the community initiative that we're already doing in that. And as I had mentioned, I've been here several times in the Neighborhood Grants Program. It's one of those ones where the concept of a grassroots-based initiative sounds great, but getting that to operationalize doesn't work. So it would be great if we could actually offer this, because there are some educators and others in the community that are doing these small events and projects and funding out of their own pocket. So this would be for a way to support that. So I would also, again, we kind of put parameters within the existing Neighborhood Grants Program that would allow us to focus in on a diversity project. I put out $250 because that's what I saw as an average in some other communities. If we were getting people that were coming in with 400 or 500, I'm not adverse to that. I just know that the smaller grants seem to be capped at around $250 to $300. So that's why I put that here. But we could allow flexibility with that. I am recommending, though, that we look at diversity and apply it broadly. There's a myriad of focus areas that can include ethnicity, gender, disability, race, socioeconomic status, national origin, religion, sexual orientation, culture. So they would have to show that they were trying to promote diversity or educate on diversity issue in any of those broad areas. and we would, again, establish guidelines that would help us make sure that we were hitting that target. I would say there's, based on reading quite a few examples, there are some of the language that I would like to encourage in both. That it has to promote diversity and inclusion through engagement in events or projects that encourage residents and visitors from varying diversity dimensions and backgrounds to attend or participate. So, in other words, we used to have actually it was actually an international meal. You remember? Yeah. So Laura Mazer ran that, and then it kind of went to the wayside because Laura moved it out of Kent. So it was challenging to actually support through our social service grants an event that wasn't held in Kent. So it was a great concept, and it actually did very well for quite some time. So this would kind of bring us back to that. And again, that was a dinner, but an event that could focus in on bringing those diversity issues would be great. Focusing on project or event ideas that encourage involvement of participants from outside of traditional neighborhoods. This is a big one. I have you can ask the city manager. If you ask me, one of the biggest protected classes we need is on income, because that is one of the things I see in housing that prohibits housing more than anything else. Voucher assisted is one of the pariahs, and if any of you, I'm going to sidebar, ever watch The Maid on Netflix, it is exactly what I see in my office on a regular basis. So, for example, to have a project or an initiative that would bring someone that is unaware of how voucher-assisted housing it affects the community, where it is in the community. Those are the kinds of things I'm looking at. Now, that's my personal example, but I do think with the Neighborhood Grants Program, the typical funding we've been doing has been very parochial and focused, which is fine, because we do want that. But if we're going to have a block party, wouldn't it be great if we actually reached out to a neighborhood that would not normally be in our neighborhood? So those are the kinds of things we hope we can encourage with that. And again, across religion, diversity, ethnicity, sexual orientation. So we're hoping that this will give some people some ideas to come by with some of those types of projects. We also are okay with it being incorporated as a component of a larger event. So if there was, Heritage Fest and somebody wanted to do a small, maybe a performing arts where they brought diversity. I know that David Coffey's granddaughter is from a country in Africa, an adoption, and they brought dancers from that group, and he was very proud of that. So it was only one performance, but it would be great if we could get somebody that could organize multiple performances showing diversity and culture. And I would also ask that we include language in there that it not be used for political candidates, petitions, issues, or lobbying activities, because this can easily sway into that realm. We need to make sure that it's being done for the right reasons. So staff, the administration supports the idea. We are always willing to accept additional funding to fund it, but since it's new, I wouldn't mind seeing it incorporated into these two existing models as carve-outs with specific parameters and guidelines, and see what we get this first year.
All right, questions from council? Yes, Roger.
One quick one, Bridget. You made a statement about the difficulties of getting grassroots people coming forward. And so how might we get this information out to our community so they know they have the opportunity if they so choose? Sure.
We do use, obviously, our website and the Tree City Bulletin. Maybe we could get something on the Portager. That has become quite a lot of people are saying, did you see the Portager? So I actually signed up for it a few months ago so that I do receive it. I get asked questions about it, but I tend not to read about anything that they ask about. So I think that we can promote it and encourage it, but I got to tell you, there's just with COVID and even right before that, getting that initiative for people to organize, because one of the things with the organization is they'll contact us and say, well, this is what we want to do. They assume that we're going to organize it. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of these programs.
Right.
Right? Grassroots initiatives need to be driven by the community themselves. So I'm hoping that if we offer the opportunity, I would like to promote with George Joseph and at the schools the smaller grants, because I do think we've got a lot of educators that are already doing some of these pieces and incorporating them into their lesson plans, that this might give them an opportunity, for example, to help subsidize a cost for an event that takes them somewhere for a field trip or for other materials that they're paying for out of pocket. So I do think that that would create a nice opportunity for that. And potentially, with that, maybe word will spread, hey, the city's offering this program. So we'll do the best we can with promoting it, like we do the other ones. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Anyone from the audience have any questions, comments? Okay. Do you need a motion?
Yes, it is an adjustment, and I would like it to be kind of formalized. I think when we did the neighborhood grants program, we did that as well, just so it's clarified and for understanding of when we included this, and so we can monitor it. So.
Okay. I'll make the motion to accept the report and the recommendations that were made by Bridget.
With emergency.
With the emergency, yes.
Second.
All right, all those,
I thought you were going to say.
yeah, we're going to a vote. All those in favor?
Go to
Aye.
Discussion.
Hang on.
Discussion.
Just testing you. Very good, very good. Excellent job, all
I guess I'll
right.
see.
Any discussion? Yes, Roger.
Okay, since I made the motion. No, I think, Bridget, I think that this is something that we continue to try to do, and I think, you know, I don't think it's council's position to organize these things within our neighborhoods. It's council's position to support and find ways to help people who want to do these types of things. So I appreciate what you've done in doing this.
Lynn?
Yes, Heidi.
Yeah, I agree with what Roger said, but I think this does continue to express a value and express that these are the kinds of activities, educational or social, cultural, that we really want to see more of in Kent. And so I would support this.
Any further? All right. Anyone in the audience want to weigh in? Okay. All right. And now to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you. I'm just going to stay here for a
Yeah,
while.
please do. I've got one more thing to ask.
I got a few things coming up.
Next up is the CDBG proposed projects. Bridget.
Yes. So as many of you are aware, but for the benefit of the audience, the city is an entitlement community. We receive community development block grant money annually direct from HUD. We have not received our allocation yet, notification. It varies. We've gotten it as late as April or May and as early as February. So since we haven't received a notice of our allocation, we estimate based on the prior years. So the prior year was just under $304,000. So the projects that were put in the memo by Kathy Petsko, who's our Grants and Neighborhood Program Coordinator, she handles the day-to-day operations on the CDBG, were sent to council. Staff is proposing $160,000 for Phase 2 of the Walnut Street reconstruction. As you remember, back when I began in 2009, along with Jim Bowling, we felt there was a need, even though we received smaller amounts of CDBG. We're actually the second smallest entitlement in the state of Ohio. But we felt it was important that we use our funds strategically to benefit low to moderate income neighborhoods in the South End. Being able to install sidewalks, stormwater, put in street trees. That's been our goal, and we've been doing it block by block and by carving out money over a couple of years. So this is our Phase 2 commitment of CDBG money to this next phase. This will cover between Harris and Dodge. It will allow for new sidewalks, concrete curb, gutter, catch basin, storm sewers, and drainage all along the roadway. So the work will not occur with this funding, but then there will be a subsequent ask, and then after that, with some additional funding that Jim will coordinate, we'll be able to do that in the future. We're also recommending, we received a proposal from the police department. They have been doing and continue to do the neighborhood policing program. This is targeted in the voucher-assisted housing areas of Silver Meadows, which is now actually Franklin Crossings, even though everybody calls it Silver Meadows, and in other areas where we tend to have a higher concentration of rental housing that receives voucher assistance. It does require engagement, one-on-one. It's not just drive-bys, and this is in addition to normal patrols. We also are committing $35,000 to the CAC of Portage County. David Shea and his team have done a great job over the years of running for us what is actually one of our most successful programs. It's a furnace inspection and targeted replacement program that for low-income households that have a furnace or a hot water tank go, we are able to, using a rotating contractor list, income qualify them and install furnaces and hot water tanks. The program is often supplemented with weatherization assistance that CAC receives through state funding. So we tend to try to do a wraparound where we assist as many fronts we can with the households. That is one of my favorite projects. It's really done a lot to benefit households in need. Family and Community Services, we assign $15,000 every year to shelter nights. Miller House is, as it has been, holding people longer than the 30-day emergency shelter. It is still qualified as an emergency shelter, but the homelessness statistics over the last 5 years, as I've repeated to you every year, we don't have places to move them oftentimes. I know Heidi can attest from her time at Coleman, transitioning from emergency to voucher-assisted housing for permanent supportive housing takes time. So we, like every community in the country, is struggling for that transitional housing step in the middle. So fortunately, we are allowed to support Miller House, and we actually put in a kitchen with CDBG money at Miller House last year because the need was there. We also are going to give FNCF assistance for some Silver Meadows renovations. So they own some transitional and permanent supportive housing duplexes and a triplex on Silver Meadows. They are all voucher assisted, and they are also program based. So in other words, anyone that's in these houses has either come out of the domestic violence shelter or one of the other programs that is run by FNCS. So Mark contacted me and he said that he's embarrassed with the look. He's surprised that we haven't issued property maintenance violations on the properties because they're looking rather worn. So we will be doing gutters and outside siding on these properties. And this project will benefit up to 5 households. Or no, I'm sorry, 7 households. Coleman submitted a request also for a Prospect Apartment rehabilitation project. They are seeking assistance for existing inside. There was a unit for severe and persistent mental illness tenant had done some significant damage into the unit. So in order to put it back in inventory so that someone else can be assisted, we're providing the money needed to renovate the inside and bring it back to safe and decent housing standards. We always do a carve-out for the Ohio Small Business Development Center. As you remember, they are actually housed in our department. We give them in-kind location services and equipment to use, and she floats between Akron, because she does work for Akron, of course, Summit County, but then also does work for Kent, and this provides business assistance to low to moderate income business owners, either starting or who are trying to learn how to manage after they've opened. And then we have a very small amount carved out for admin because we basically prefer funding projects over admin, and since we are unclear of what we're going to get, we decided to put money towards it. We do have some money we can reprogram if we need it for, because really out of the administration all we're really dealing with is advertisements and things that we need to do to meet the HUD requirements. And finally, as mentioned actually during Dave's presentation, our Fair Housing Board no longer, and has not for many years, done enforcement. We actually provide $19,000 a year to Fair Housing Contact Services. They're based out of Akron. They do testing for us actually, as well as investigate complaints. And we also, as part of our contract, have them do tenant landlord services because we do have challenges and issues in our highly rented community with those types of events. So we do have them do that training twice a year. And at this point, we are not requesting a motion approving these for several reasons. One is we don't have the exact allocation, and number two, we're required to have a 30-day comment period and one more public hearing on this matter. So this is more for information purposes, and the vote and approval will happen in May.
Any questions or comments from council? Anyone from the audience want to comment or have a question? Is that a question? If you'd like to come up to the microphone and just say your name and address, please, for the record. Thank you.
Bridget, John Thomas, 1621 Chadwick. How much money is stipulated to Family and Community Services for the maintenance of their 5 to 6 residential?
The duplexes and the triplex?
Yeah.
Right now, we're anticipating $50,000 will be allocated for all of the 3 duplexes and the triplex.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Bridget.
I'm still here.
Land use, Mr. Brewer. Yep, I would call to order the Land Use Committee and turn it over to Bridget again. Thank you.
Yes, I've got a few here in a row. So we were contacted by an attorney in January. The law department received a notification from a lawyer. There is a property owner in Riverbend who is trying to consolidate parcels as he gets ready to settle out an estate and sell, and discovered that 2 parcels that are listed as property he purchased as part of the subdivision are actually listed in the jurisdictional boundary of Franklin Township. Now, I want to clarify that this is based on a 1917 annexation petition when Kent was actually just a village. And what happened was, when you look at the documents, the petition language actually says that the southernmost boundary of the township, which of course is the northernmost boundary of what would be annexed for the city, is actually the center line of the Cuyahoga River. So using that language, when you look at I did actually include some aerial photos from the auditor's website, you can see that those 2 parcels are actually located south of that center line and should be included in the 1917 tax map drawing in the jurisdiction of the city of Kent. However, they are not. On the tax map, they put the line actually further south, and those 2 parcels are still situated on the tax map in the jurisdictional boundary of Franklin Township. However, that contradicts the language and the legal description included in the petition. So this item, when it was brought to my attention, I actually contacted the township, and they had received the same letter, and it was funny because they said they put it in a folder. I'm like, we need to get that out of the folder. So I said when I talked to the attorney, I said, what I think we need to do is pass legislation from the township and from the city, with the city affirming that they agree that those 2 parcels, which are underwater, unbuildable, and total valuation is less than $200. So let's be clear. We are talking literally about a course correction housekeeping item. It is, there's no, this has nothing to do with anything other than settling an estate. And then have the township affirm that they agree, that based on the petition. So I actually worked with the township, and they had a township meeting actually last week and approved it. We actually both have the same exact exhibits, which is the letter from the attorney along with all the supporting documentation from that 1917 annexation that needed to be documented to show that we are both in agreement that that line needs to be drawn in the center of the river, and those 2 parcels do actually fall within Kent. So I'm requesting with emergency the council affirm their agreement that staff's review and the language of the petition is correct, and that those 2 parcels are included in the 1917 annexation jurisdictional boundary of the city, which was a village at that time.
Ms. Bish?
Yeah, so would this put us into any situation where we have to give refunds for previous years of tax?
No. Actually, that was a question that we ran past Hope.
Yeah.
No.
Further from council? Questions from the audience? Back to council?
Move to approve with the emergency.
Second. Oh, go ahead.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion passes.
Streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sidoti.
Yes, the first thing we have is Main Street Kent Art and Wine Festival. Bridget, you're still here.
Yeah, one more, and
We
this will
can't get rid of you.
This will be 10 seconds. So as you know, Main Street Kent always has the Art and Wine Festival. Unfortunately, for the last couple of years, COVID COVID has affected this. This is their largest fundraiser and one of the most heavily visited events. They are relocating its location, though, so that's why the application is before you. Because typically, once it's been approved once, the permit is just issued annually. But they're relocating it to North Water Street because of the closure of Franklin for the outdoor seating area. So we're just here asking authorization. I don't believe this needs emergency because I think it's just approval of a permit, but we can throw that in there for the relocation of the permit. And if you looked at the application material that Patty pulled together, Heather did get signatures from the majority of the business owners along North Water on both west and east sides.
Okay, any questions from council? Seeing none, any questions from the community?
Can you just define the address again?
It's North Water Street from East Main down to Portage.
Back to council.
Move to authorize with emergency.
Second.
Any comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay.
Thank you. Now I'm done.
You're leaving, huh?
Now I'm done.
The next on the agenda is Jim Bowling with a water service request for 1677 State Route 59.
Good evening. We've received a request from a new commercial establishment looking to locate in the Franklin Jed, just in front of Acme, just west of Pizza Hut. And to do so, they need to request water service here from the city, so that's what we are asking for.
Okay. Any questions from council? Well, seeing none, any questions from the community? Back to council.
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Yes, please.
With emergency.
With emergency? Okay. Any further comments?
Yeah,
Okay, yes?
I'm just reading that they did sign the JED agreement, so I'm very inclined to support this request.
Seeing no more, all those in favor of the request signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Finance.
Mr. Malone.
Angela, surplus fitness equipment to auction.
Good evening.
Good evening, Lou.
I'm here to request approval to put up several fitness equipment items up for auction. I think you all should have received a 2-page list. These are items that are currently or were being used in the Parks and Recreation Fitness Center that was located at 1205 West Main. The Parks Board did vote to close that facility at the end of 2021. So we need to vacate that. It is a leased property. We'll be vacating by April 30th. So we are looking to auction off the items that are in the building so that we can get those moved out of there so that we're able to turn over the lease back to the property manager.
Questions?
Yeah, was that not a very successful endeavor?
Coming on new into this department, I came in right around the beginning of this past May, and that was one area that I was very concerned about. I managed a 55,000 square foot recreation and fitness center for about 14 years, and looking at this space, it had a lot of, unfortunately, cons against it. I think from the beginning that would have prevented it from ever being very successful. It was very, very small. It was very limited on space. We didn't own the building outright, so we had a high lease payment. It wasn't attractive to the community. When you have Planet Fitness down the street, the Kent Barbell Club, you have a student recreation center that the students can use. So it was losing on average about $60,000 a year from its inception in 2013. So we did make the decision to close that.
Further questions?
Yeah.
Oh, Roger.
Is this going to be an online auction? Or
It is. It is govdeals.net, and it is a service that I have used in the past and been very successful, been very happy with. So we will list everything. We'll publicize this auction to the community. You don't have to be a resident to bid on any items. There will be starting bids, minimum bids, and then there is a buyer's premium that's added onto that, which is kind of the form of a tax to the buyer. So there's no cost to the city. and then Gov Deals. We did work with the finance department to set up an online account. So any profits that we do receive from this auction will go right back into the Parks and Recreation Department's budget.
That was my question.
Further questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, might you consider putting some proceeds into pickleball courts?
Possibly. So we're in the process of doing a master plan study, and we'll see where that ranks with the community. But right now, I think the intent is to use any proceeds from this online auction to pay down the debt that this department still owes the city for the trail project.
Further questions? Anyone from the audience?
Where will that website be posted?
It will be posted on Kent Parks and Rec, recreation.com, and I imagine the city's website, the City of Kent's website, and it'll be on all of our social media pages as well.
What's that?
I have a question,
You
if I
go-
may.
yes, you
Of
may.
Angela. Angela, do you think any of those things you've listed on here might not sell, and they'll just be left over?
Yes.
Okay.
Possibly.
Okay. Would it be a good idea to include in this ordinance, if it's approved, that council authorizes the Park and Recs Department to donate or dispose of any items that are not sold as they see fit?
I think that would be a very good idea. I think that'd be greatly appreciated. Yes, thank you.
So is that,
So we need a motion.
so we need a motion, yes.
I would move to approve that, unless there's another question.
Yep.
Move to approve with emergency, with the additional stipulation that unsold items be donated or disposed of at the discretion of Parks and Rec.
Second.
Reminder, asking for the emergency in your packet.
They
Did you
did.
say it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Is
Didn't hear
there
it.
further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Angie.
Now, where are we at? IT support.
Yeah, so if I can, as he's walking up, I just want to introduce Nick Cecil. You may not know him, but we do, because he was instrumental, actually, when the police station, the new police station opened. He was very much one of the main people pulling cables and doing all the work that's required to get that place plugged in. And you might imagine a police station that has some fairly sophisticated technology, so we were grateful that he was able to help us then, and he's back this time as our manager of IT, so please welcome him. We're delighted to have him, and I don't know if you'll see him again. He may be climbing up above these panels and doing that kind of stuff, but tonight I wanted to at least get him a chance to introduce himself to you, and it's a fairly easy topic. It's a renewal, basically, of our technical assistance with the local firm Quality IP. So, Nick, I don't know if you want to give any more details.
Nope, I just want to say thank you, Dave, and I'm excited to be here with the city. So, yes, this is just the initial 3-year contract that was signed with Quality IP has now ended, and this is just, there's no cost increase for the year. It's just a single-year renewal of the original contract.
Questions?
Yeah.
Go on, Garrett.
We have to bid out, will that go to public bid after the 1-year renewal, then at this time next year, or is there?
We're reviewing the options of what it would be after 1 year, but for now, the time being, it is just a single year. While I get a lot of the contracts that we would normally renew for multi-year, I'm only renewing for a single this year while I evaluate all of the things across the city to figure out, what we can do better, how we can change things. Maybe we keep some of the vendors, it just depends. But right now, a lot of the major contracts are going for a single year renewal rather than multi-year, to give me the opportunity to one, I need the support of a lot of these, for the first year, but then after that, to give us the chance to, see where the city stands.
Roger?
Yeah. Nick, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. And I guess this is also directed at Dave. The administration, I'm assuming, based on the recommendation that you're happy with Quality IP the types of things they do for our city?
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay.
I mean, it gives us continuity as well. They know a lot of our systems, the staff that's been working. So, I mean, he knows a lot of our stuff already, but it doesn't hurt to have people help working with him that also know the systems. Well, you know, it's always hard to transition. Gary Bishop was great while we had him, and a lot of knowledge walks out the door, so the more we can keep around him, but they're a local company. Nick's worked for them and with them, so yes, I feel good about it.
Further questions? Anyone in the audience have a question? Back to council?
Move to approve with the
Second.
emergency.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Rhonda's last.
Now Dave Coff,
Oh,
oh,
yeah, Dave.
Oh, no, no.
he was always last.
He was always last.
last.
You can change that.
See, we should
change that.
Did you want to wait till after executive session?
Yeah.
He's going to go over the budget amendments.
Okay. I'm here to ask if, that you approve the appropriation amendments that I've requested in the memo dated February 23rd, 2022, with emergency.
Questions from council? None? Anybody from the audience? Back to council.
Emergency.
Second.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You waited around.
Thank
for
you.
that.
That was only 3 hours.
I need a motion to go into executive session, Jan.
I'd like to move for an executive session to discuss board and commission applicants.
There's a second.
Second.
Second, roll call, please.
I love our staff.
Mr. Amorine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Hyder, Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner? And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Kuhar has to be excused.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Could we have everybody out of the room? Neither did they. So, Mike DeLone gave me the flag, but they don't know about it.
Since they're hanging, I'm going to use the restroom.